feels good to finally have a spot for those. I've been kicking them all around the shop for years, and they finally got a decent home. Hopefully it won't have to change, at least not anytime soon. Got to get rid of the scales. That's a box with a fancy new tool we need to set up. But point is, most of this stuff's going to go, and we'll finally have this spot cleared out. And this area of the shop will be pretty much ready to go for the new tools we are getting. So basically, we just need to do the rest of the shop here. We're completely stripping down and reorganizing and resetting up my 30 by 50 home workshop here, and adding a bunch of new tools, features, storage, organization, or just continuing to try to maximize the floor space. I've got about 1,500 square feet. The shop is 30 by 50. And you ask anyone with a shop, way larger, way smaller, everyone will tell you they'd love to have more room. You could always use more room. And as much as I would love some more room, I think we have enough to do everything we need to do. It just requires some serious rearranging. This area, for example, has to change entirely. This is kind of a chicken or the egg thing, though, because we need to use this area. It's the fabrication corner to build the stuff to change it and other areas. So it's you know, it's going to be a little tricky to juggle that, but we'll do just fine. But first things first, I got some unfinished business with this void here. When we move the micro mill and lathe toolbox set up over there, we're left with a giant hole. Now, don't get me wrong, it's kind of nice to have this space, but we kind of need that filled and our characters, so to speak, in place before we can start piling new tools in here, so we don't end up with a larger mess than we started with. So that being said, we got a running start on this project, at least a rectangle, so let's keep plugging away on it, get it done, so we move on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. We got a lot to do if I want to finish this out entirely, so you get it. We need to get to it. But real quick, this one I'm passionate about. Let me grab my bag. Before we get too deep into the thick of it, I want to talk to you about today's video sponsor, Groons. Now, this is one that I have a hard time not jibber-jabbering on and on about because there's so many cool, impressive things about Groons. So we're going to go through this rapid-fire bullet points. Number one, the gummy form factor. Ease of use, huge thing for me. If you're traveling out of town, not having to bring powder and a water source and a blender bottle and shake it all up and do all that every day. Nope, just bring the packs of gummies, eat the pack of gummies. Piece of cake. Number two, though, the gummy form factor, along with them being methylated, allows your body to absorb all of those nutrients. With the powders, they turn into a fluid, and a lot of that fluid takes the express lane. The bypass does not take the scenic route and just kind of flows right through you. Body doesn't get a chance to absorb it all. A lot more efficient. Number three, though, I think is the biggest one, enjoyment factor. Instead of needing self-discipline to make sure you stick on that routine every day, what you do need self-discipline for is to not eat another pack. And I mean this, like, if you haven't tried it, when you try it, be prepared to want to eat another pack because it is hard not to. I almost wish they would have not nailed this recipe where most of your things are right around 100% of your daily value, because then I could eat more than one pack. But you're meant to eat just one pack per day, but that also keeps it so simple. If you don't believe me, try them out firsthand. You can get up to 52% off if you click my link down in the description. See what you think, and you'll see what I'm talking about. It's one of those things, man. That's why I have a hard time not jibber-jabbering on about it, but we're out of time. I'm gonna get back to work. Things is large, but we'll make it work. It's funny, every time I make something like this, I always start out with the idea of not having a ton of structure, not overdoing it on the structure, but then I think, do I want it light or do I want it strong? Do I want to regret not making it strong enough? And yeah, we gotta add some supports in here to make this as strong as I want to make it. You know, the name of the game sometimes. Now, I used to avoid MIG welding like the plague. I just, you know, there's certain things about it I didn't love, and not being able to make a small bead profile, and I thought, it doesn't take that much longer to TIG weld it. But the thing is, while it actually does take that much longer to TIG weld it, it also takes that much longer in the prep work. If I was going to TIG weld these, I'd want the entire piece to be shiny bright metal. You know, super clean, no mill scale, no rust. But with MIG welding, we can get away with just cleaning up the edges some, getting a lot of the gunk off, and then zapping them in, and that is definitely a way faster process. So it's always a fine line, a juggling act of speed and efficiency versus getting the result you want. And for what this is, I'm never going to even look at these TIG welds again, so they might as well be MIG welds. Well, I kind of messed this up. This is the beam spacing, but the way I'm doing this and how I'm trying to make this, these needed to be either outside or inside the beam spacing. So I gotta cut them out. I could make this work, but it's not gonna be as good. I'll tell you, there's not much worse than finishing the main part of something or an entire thing and then having to go back and cut it apart. Believe me, I did not want to do this, but I thought about it many times, and it was just really going to make the end product way worse if I didn't do it. Now, I am really glad these were MIG welds instead of TIG welds. If I had to cut apart my TIG welds, I would be a little sad. But the thing is, when you cut anything, it's not a zero-sum game. There's always the thickness of whatever you're cutting it with, and we lost quite a bit of material, good material on that job, and now we got to replace it. We had enough welding gas to get through that, surprisingly. This bottle's been pegged on empty for a while now. Side note, quick tip I've mentioned before, but it took me a long time to realize this, longer than I would like to admit. So I want 5 holes. I think it's a good number for this, right? You know what? I'm changing. I'm gonna do 4. So measure this, 345-ish. Now, if we divide that by 4 holes, we're not going to get the last distance. We would basically land it on the end. So anyway, you divide it by 5. Moral of the story. 70 millimeters. This next part is where things are a little tricky. This one, we've definitely got to take our time to make sure everything fits upright. Otherwise, the whole thing is not going to work. Fortunately, our hinge situation and location works. I actually came up with the idea to build this way purely because I was trying to find a place to put those. Those are leftovers from the ArcDroid table build, and I was kicking them around. And I thought, well, where should I put these to save them for later? And then it dawned on me. But these things being as thick as they are, you gotta weld them hot, super hot. Plus, they're sporting a lot of load, you know. That too. Well, I don't want to keep pushing my luck with the gas on this thing because we are almost out. Well, we've been out. The needle's been reading empty since before we started this project. I'm gonna see if they have the larger bottles there and upgrade. You know, for a while this 80 worked because MIG welding was something I did pretty sparingly, but you know, lately I've been doing a lot more of it, so we need more gas. Well, we now got a fresh bottle of gas. That's definitely a nice feeling. I was rushing through some of these welds, but we've also got the material to finish the project and just restock. This is stuff I just kind of use pretty often. You know, this 1x2 tube, also this 1x1. Some of this is also for the Miata that I stole for this project. But I went ahead and got some thinner wall, 14 gauge on the 1x2, as well as some more 8th wall. And then same with the 1x1s, kind of lighter duty projects, like, you know, like this one. This would have been a good one for lighter duty material, but hey, you know, not everything needs to be 8th wall. I'm gonna get everything put away and then let's get back to this project. I might have to add something I didn't want to add. I'm conflicted. It's a little heavy. I mean, this thing is not very light. Keep chugging away, get this done. It's supposed to be quick and easy. Didn't we talk about this? Let's get back to it. Oh. So what I'm obviously trying to accomplish here is basically making this fold up and out of the way, but that means we're going to need some way to lock it in. And the downside to building things this large is that they're larger than the table I'm building them on. So speaking of chicken or the egg, it makes things a little bit tricky. So basically what we've got to do is build some sort of a catch system. Now luckily I kind of did something similar to this with the Arc Droid. This is a little bit different, and there's going to be some tricky things that we're gonna have to figure out to make this work, but at a baseline we need some way to keep this thing from falling down and crushing us. So that's, you know, I mean, that's an important step one. Get that done, we can figure out the rest. One of the downsides of bringing the welder out of its little cave is that when you need to weld something that you could weld on the welding table, you don't want to go back and forth. So this becomes the welding table. At least we have a metal table to work from. I made it a little bit easier, but basically what we've got to do is get this thing up in position and up on the wall. The problem is there's no do-overs on this. You know, if we put these holes in the wrong spot out of level, it's kind of game over. And unfortunately, this is one of the things I can't stand about these barrel hinges is they have these little ball bearings in them to space them out and allow them to pivot. And of course I dropped one, but after some time looking and sleeping on it, admittedly, I managed to find them, so we can continue. A little trick, if we use self-tappers, you can do a self-tapper and then you have your hole effectively to just drill out larger for your rib nut. I don't know why I came back here. But yeah, so I'm debating if we need to add legs to this. I'm really conflicted because part of me feels like we do. The other part of me feels like it's going to be strong enough. I would like to not add legs because the whole idea is that this thing will be flip up, flip down, quick and easy. I'm still conflicted. What we're going to do, though, to determine this is we're going to install it as is, get it mounted. We got to do that anyway to measure for our legs and get them the exact right length. And then we'll see how it is. Get this knocked out so we can move on to the other stuff because we got a lot of stuff to move on to and this thing's taking up too much of my time. Well, if that works, my only gripe is I wish I would have gone down a tiny bit. This is what I was, trying to make sure that we didn't bind up against that box, but right at 47. Yeah, that actually puts it a little bit lower than that toolbox. And again, it gives us a little more room underneath, maximizing. That's the benefit of the self-tapper method. We were able to test it out, with the self-tapper in it. Now we have the hole in the spot. I don't usually like to do all of it self-tappers and then use those all as pilot holes because it's easy to get a self-tapper off to the corner of the hole, in the corner, and you can end up with holes that are nowhere near close. So normally I do just, for this kind of stuff, just self-tapper it into the wall. But in this case, I'm trying to go legless. And if I want to go legless, it's got to be strong. So rib nuts it is. And luckily I had these heavy duty M8 rib nuts lying around that were perfect. But we've got to do a little massaging on our catch system. It was just a little bit tight to get both pins in. And again, we want this to to be easy. That's my whole point of not doing legs. Well, it's only one more step to fold out legs. You know, that extra step is the difference between doing and not doing. Of course, got to do the swing test, you know. Frame of this, I think we're good. I mean, I'm hanging right on the end. And I ain't white. Boom. Tucks up nicely out of the way. One of the reasons I do like working with aluminum over steel is we don't usually have to paint it. I mean, you can, but steel, we got to paint it or it's going to rust. Otherwise, if that wasn't the case, I wouldn't paint a lot of stuff. I'm ashamed to admit it, but it's true. If I'm being honest with you and myself, a lot of the reason I, have a desire to make tables is one, because the store-bought stuff, I've done it, I've tried it, and it's usually kind of junky. It's not very solid. I mean, they definitely don't have, I don't think, a wall-hinged door mount or store-bought dang table. But I also have this leftover wood, and the name of the game here is freeing up space and organizing the shop better, allowing space for more tools. So it's kind of a 2-for-1 special, where we get to clear out some of this wood I've been kicking around for a year now. This is all wood from the loft build. And we get a table, which allows us more space, more storage, more organization. So, it is a win-win. Now, one of the things I wasn't sure about was I decided to make this wider than the piece of wood. And I really went back and forth on this, but I knew I would regret making it too thin. And we had these other kind of scrap pieces that we could hook together because this is tongue and groove wood. So it's kind of a unique situation where it's, easy enough to basically extend it just a little bit. And we get rid of more of this scrap wood that I've been kicking around. I didn't have it in me to throw it away because it's nice wood, but if you don't throw it away, you got to store it. And my motto is, if I'm going to store it, I better be pretty dang sure that I'm going to use it at some point down the road. So yeah, anyway, that's the struggle, but I regret going too small with workbenches often, more times than too large. The exception of one. There is one outlier there, but we got this thing screwed down into the frame. One of the things that I love about working with steel and building stuff like this out of steel is, this is a 1x1 frame as opposed to a 2x4 frame if we had built this out of wood. So it keeps it nice and thin, but we got a small window on self-tapper size. Now, the biggest thing that I was unsure about with our catch system was going through the wood top, and I tried to space the hinges just right to make it through with the thickness, and so far, it looks like it's actually going to work. All right, well, our table is structurally complete. This old loft wood worked out pretty well. This was the flooring that came, actually you can see it right there, kicking this stuff around, waiting to use it on something. This is a perfect project. Now, I would have liked to salvage this top because we're going to have to get rid of this entire table from this area. But I liquid nailed this thing on, so I'm not too confident in getting it off without completely and utterly destroying it. So we might as well use this stuff again. I've been kicking it around. It's been in the way. We'll find something to do with that if we manage to get it off. So, yeah, we still got to do something on the top of this. I'm not a big fan of splinters, Before we get into anything else, I want to get this thing back on the wall so we can see what it looks like to have a workbench. Again, worked out that I had these heavy-duty M8 riv nuts. These have a much thicker crush section, so they crush wider. But, yeah, anyway, let's get this thing back on the wall. I was trying to move it last night, and I knocked the whole dang thing over, because I forgot that it's a little too wide for the sawhorses. Anyway, back to work. Always got to do the hang press. Put our things back on. All right, our table is officially Done. Folds up out of the way perfectly. You can see the way the little pieces go through the wood. Our little hold table up brackets tucks up against the wall nicely. I am realizing we will need to do something on the bottom too, maybe. Whatever we do on the top, or just something, maybe just some paint. But yeah, so if we want our space, we have it. We can just flip the table up. But when we want the table, we can just flip it down. Now I plan on getting some storage to go under here, but it'll all be, whatever we do will be rollable, so that way we can always just roll it in and out of the way. You know, if we were to flip the table up, you could roll the stuff somewhere else. There's definitely times, like if I have the jet boat in here and I still have a car, you know, here in this spot, there would be room if there wasn't stuff over here kind of thing. There's odd scenarios where it'd be nice to have the space, or at least the ability to convert to the space. So we'll have it. How often we'll use it, I don't know. Time will tell. But let's let me put this thing back down, see what it looks like. Depends. It kind of holds itself up. I mean, not that I want to trust that, but the other thing is, it's not just hanging on the brackets. The bottom is pushing its way into the wall too. That's how I set up these barrel hinges. I had this scrap piece and I cut it in half with a 45, you know, and worked out pretty well with the distance to these brackets. Sweet. I need to measure this and see, maybe I can put my bolt bin back on top of there. That'd be nice. Beautiful. Oh, and to think I thought I was going to do that whole thing in 2 hours. I don't want to talk about it. Squares. I don't know if you could tell. This thing's weight holding capabilities. This is gonna be tough. I really would like this stuff. The irony is, I might have mentioned this a few times, maybe a million, if you watch regularly, if you hang out here regularly, but I am not a huge fan of working with wood, and thus I normally don't use any sort of liquid nails type of thing, but I, for whatever reason, decided to on this table. I was like, let me liquid nails it on instead of screwing it in. I think it's because I didn't want to deal with countersinking them in the top. I don't know. It was a couple of years ago now, but yeah, that, you know, I mean, it was easy at the time, but now trying to get this thing off is a fight. I'm getting the edges up, but then I've also liquid nailed it across the entire center section. So everywhere is liquid nailed. Now the air hammer is helping. It's definitely a little bit better, a little faster of a process to try to break this up, because we've got to be gentle. You know, the whole idea is to save the top of this table. I could just hack my way through it and destroy it and get it off, but the top is what I care about. However, air hammers and air hoses, not my friend today. Can't say I've ever had that happen before. It wasn't this fitting's fault. These are like cheap Amazon ones that are cool because you don't have to pull the thing back. The one that got beat up was a Milton. It got beat up the other day when I was using this over there for whatever reason. Anyway, lesson learned on that. After multiple attacks by the dang arrows, and I decided to switch back to the old-fashioned method of elbow grease, hammer and the chisel pry bar deal, but it's definitely after the air hammer not making the progress I wanted. So I switched to another airline that has a brass fitting on it, and realized that I probably should have just put a brass fitting on the air hammer, but
quite stubborn.
Sometimes it's good to call it a night. I was rushing, trying to finish getting this thing off, and the next day, like nothing. Pops right off. Well, I think it's safe to say Liquid Nails works pretty dang well. Oh, man, that was a hard-fought battle. Banners I wanted, but then a lot of these stickers are stickers that I don't have any more of and I can't replace. And I remember when I put them on there, I'm like, well, I'm going to have this table forever, so it's fine if I put them on this, so it was like, I got to save it. But it was a struggle. Got smacked in the face a couple times by the air thing. I mean, it's my fault, I guess, with the air hammer. I switched it, which I should have done a long time ago. I've just never really had this problem before. I switched it to a brass fitting. This was like a brand new aluminum one, just shredded right through them. That was the second one. The first one's already kind of beat up. I gotta decide what I'm gonna do with this. I mean, it's like a good chunk of wood. I don't want to waste it. Believe me, I thought long and hard. I don't even want to tell you how long I spent wandering around trying to decide on something I could use this table for, whether it be the top and the bottom separate as some sort of platform, and then eventually I realized I just need to take it apart and save the wood for another project, because it's a lot of wood. I was considering giving it away and trying to find someone who needed it that could use it, but I need the wood off the bottom for one of these projects we're working on now, and by the time I take everything I need off it, it's not really a workbench anymore. Plus, I don't even have anywhere to keep the dang thing in the meantime because it's so overly large. This is that one example of the time where I regretted going as large as I did. I really wanted a big, massive workbench, and it's just too much. It's just, you can't put it anywhere. But Past Taylor used a lot of screws. I did not realize how many screws I put in this dang thing. I mean, I was consistent, so once I got my rhythm, it was fine. But sheesh, a lot of screws.
Whew.
Whole table reduced down to a pallet of wood. Thankfully, I got forklifts for the tractor, or forks for the tractor. Take it out. A lot of screws. Whole lot of screws. The tool belt's coming in clutch, though. I'll tell you that much. Well, fully deconstructed table, I would say it's safe to say, oh, geez, you all right? It's safe to say we are committed now. Wow, it's weird to see that whole table reduced to a pallet of wood, which I gotta now find a place for. Yeah, that's the downside. You try to make space, and by making space, you kind of create more stuff that needs a place, you know? We'll figure it out. But, yeah, so we should be able to repurpose most of this, not in its same form. It's gonna have to get chopped up, but there's a few different projects that we could take advantage of using this for, and it will live on, which makes me happy, because like I said, there's a lot of stickers on here that I don't have any more of. These are the last copies, you know, from the early merch days and stuff, different things. So anyway, before we start on building the next stuff, I've got my Type Bond wood glue here. I'm curious to see how this goes. I haven't done this in a while. If you recall, if you've watched for a long time, way back when this shop was, the back 16 feet was enclosed and all of this was a carport, there was a table that came with it with this real uneven top. I put an MDF top on it. I mentioned epoxying it, and somebody had mentioned using the Type Bond wood glue instead. Now, I love epoxying tops. It works well, but it is a whole song and dance. So for what that table is going to be used for, I think the Type Bond method will work well. But I honestly don't know, because I haven't done it in so long, and I haven't done it on that type of wood. So curious to see how this goes. But we got a lot to build to kind of reconstruct this area, but with more space for our new tools. As you can see, again, we got a lot of stuff to put somewhere. We need to build it somewhere, but we need to get this coated first, so that way it's curing. And order of operations, let's get back to work. Let's get to it. Yeah, on top of the new tools, we still got the old tools, some of which didn't even have a home, like some of the stuff that's on here. So yeah, we got to do that, but you might as well get this done first. I wanted to sand down the kind of roughness. Whenever I use the jigsaw with I only have these speed cut blades for wood, and they just tear up plywood like this. So a little bit of a grinder action, and it's ready to go. And it smoothed out pretty good. Once we do the Type Bond, I think it'll be okay. So the idea here is this Type Bond wood glue is wood glue. I mean, it's literally meant to glue joints together and do things like that. But again, someone years ago had mentioned to me people using this as kind of an epoxy replacement because it dries relatively clear. And I did it on that MDF top, and it worked pretty well. So, you know, again, I haven't done it on plywood like this. I don't know if it's going to have a different result. And it is always a little strange when you first put it on because it's white. So you're like, wait a second, is this, am I just painting this table? I thought it was supposed to be clear, but you got to trust the process. It's definitely a trust the process moment. So speaking of, we got a process to build out our new storage and infrastructure for over here that has more space, but also lets us fit everything. It's a tall order, but I think we can do it. At this point, I've done quite a few table builds now out of steel, and you know, to keep yourself from getting bored doing a similar kind of thing over and over, you gotta change it up, mix it up. And that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm doing this one a little differently than I normally would, and I'm trying to stick with the lightweight, minimalistic, it doesn't need to be a tank mentality, and also MIG welding. Again, I know I've, you know, not to, whatever, keep bringing it up, but it is so much faster. You know, for the longest time, I always convinced myself that TIG welding wasn't that much slower at this scale, but it is, the MIG welding makes this way faster, which makes you willing to kind of hammer through the other projects, which we need to do because we can't be spending 2, 3 days, 4 days making a table. We need to get this done. We've got a lot of things to build, and we have a lot of things to build. That's the reality of it. The other thing is, I've spent all this time TIG welding tables and things, and then once I painted them, I personally couldn't even tell the difference or would forget whether I TIG or MIG welded them. So, allowing us to get this done faster, which means get more stuff done, hey, I'm all for it. So blasting through, welding this thing out. We've got our initial frame done. I've got a kind of neat idea for this one. We'll see if it pays off or not. That is always a question mark.
Nice. It's funny because,
basically, I don't know why I've never thought to do this before. I usually always try to use the same size tubing throughout a table build, but running the 1x2 for the top here, it gives us that lip, which it's really nice to have that lip sometimes when you need to bolt something in or you need to clamp something on the edge. So I don't know, pretty stoked on that. I think that'll work out perfect, and we use a little less material in the process, but we got our main frame done. We still gotta do a few things. I gotta decide on that. I also ordered some different bins that ideally will make a tray for, but we'll have to wait till those get here. So that's not a priority. We just need a table back there. So speaking of tables, our table of the hour here took so much time. The glue is cured, and you can see where it's darker. That's where it's a little thicker. And then you can see it kind of thins out here on the edges. So I think I'm gonna throw kind of another coat, but mainly just to cover these lighter areas. I don't mind the way it looks, but the edges are really where you're interacting with it the most. So it's so much smoother where it's a little bit thicker. So we'll throw another coat on. I'm glad I did that extra coat on the front. You can see how much more uniform the front is with all the different layers and such. So anyway, jibber jabber. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. So that way, while that's drying, we'll also be able to kind of get in these cracks and crevices a little bit better and fill them in even more. But overall, pretty happy with how this one's coming out. So let's get both these dang tables done, because we gotta, do the thing for the thing, do the other thing, finish, boom, boom, move on to the next thing. I want to get all this done so we can put the dang shop back together and start putting in new tools. So anyway, where am I going? What am I doing? Let's get to work. Back to work. I tried a little bit different method with the moving the glue around this time, because that's part of why the edges ended up so thin. Is I would pour it in the middle so it didn't overflow off the edge, but then anyway, spreading it with the brush worked out pretty well, I think. We won't know till it cures, but I think to fill in those edges. So now we got to get back to building, fabricating. We got to finish up this table. I was debating how much support to add. On the bottom, we for sure need support because we're going to be storing stuff there, and heavy stuff like scrap material and things like that. The top, we need some. It's, when you don't know how exactly you're going to set something up, it's better to overbuild for sure, even though I was just ranting on about how I was going to make this light and it doesn't need to be a tank. But I think we're somewhere in between tank and not tank. So I think, we're still compromising. We're compromising. Tank mode, I probably would have had 2 or 3 on the top. So, it's a good in between. So now we need to build our base plates for the parking caster deals that we stole off the table that we took apart. And we repurposed. Now, this is the benefit of designing things in CAD. I was reluctant to make the switch to spending the time drawing things in CAD and cutting them out because, initially it could take a little more time. But in this case, for example, we made these for the bead roller stand, and they're the same-ish parking casters, so just cut another set. I had the whole program ready to go to cut 4 of them, so saved a lot of time there having to design, measure, and cut something. This is ready to go. Plug and play. Or press and cut. Something like that. Admittedly, I kind of forgot I was going to need to grind this down because we MIG welded it. TIG welding, the beads aren't so crazy that you have to grind them. But I had ran out of my go-to spray paint, and I thought, we might as well paint it to match the walls of the shop. But man, getting coverage on steel with this stuff is, I've been spoiled by painting everything one color because it covers way easier. This does not. Well, that was a bit of a messy process, but we got this thing painted, so what a curious why I never paint anything other than my favorite, the good old gloss black. That always works mint. And the coverage is way better. But anyway, yeah, we need to get into this next project. It's gonna be a little challenging. I mean, I like a good challenge. It's just gonna be a little mental work, physical work, drilling, cutting, grinding, welding, painting. Dang it, we still gotta paint it. But I think we can marathon through this. Let's get to it. Scrap metal. Let's get this done. While the table's curing, we still gotta cut this tabletop. So yeah, I gotta quit jibber jabbering. Faux show. Let's get to work. Back to work. I'm one of those people who pretends to not know what a to-do list is or a cut list, and this was one where there's a lot of angles involved that we have to get right, and a lot of dual angles, opposing angles, and I actually had to make myself a cut list for this one so I didn't mess it up because I wanted to get all the pieces cut, you know. If possible, it's definitely, at least for me, more efficient to do all of one process and then all of another process instead of part and then this other process and then back to this one. So I'm trying to, I was trying to streamline my process here, and drilling these holes is the part I was dreading the most. You could see using the arc droid back in that corner, not ideal. That's why we need a water table. And this mag drill does not work well. I mean, it does the job. The problem is it's just got way too much slop. So that is one of the many new tools we are going to be getting. But it got us through this. Can't hate on it too much. So let's get these zapped together and see if the plan works like it does in my head. This is a iffy one. Since these are going to bolt up against the wall, we needed to grind down these welds. I'm not a fan of grinding down welds, and I normally avoid it by TIG welding. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going down that rabbit hole again, but got them ground down ahead of time because it's dark out. And spray painting in the dark, kind of late, probably not great to begin with, so at least we got that part done before having to come out here and use the paint booth in the dark. Right, squeeze. Just there. We gotta cut this. I just don't want to get sawdust on it. Well, before I started putting this thing together, man, it is vibrant. Holy cow. With the painted bottom and the MDF top, I think it'll look snazzy. Same with the other brackets, which I gotta decide what to do with this piece of wood. If I want to paint it or leave it or type bond it. Options. But yeah, so we need to measure out our top, cut it, bolt it. Same with the bottom. I always despise making those kind of cuts where there is no do-over. I don't have another one of these tables. I don't have extras of these stickers, which is why I spent so much time trying to salvage this top. So I measured probably 4 times so that I could hopefully cut once. You know, we only got one shot to get this right, and I want the banners to be on the main table. You know, they're also kind of the main largest section, but not only are you getting wood dust, but you're getting the epoxy dust, and I learned that from the other table, the Milwaukee table I call it. That dust is pretty gnarly. It's like chunks. So anyway, we got the table cut. Luckily, it is indeed the right shape and the right size. I would have loved to keep the whole Nitto sticker, but there was also a hole there for the bandsaw cord and blah, blah, blah. But basically, now we just got to attach it, and we've at least got that part of the table done and dusted, which just getting through that cut without messing it up and making it the right size, I'm A1. I'm a happy camper, fabricator, or something, shop person. Alright, well, it was somewhat done. I've got to do the bottom pieces, but got the top done, at least. But check it out. I don't know, it looks nice, and I think it'll look less like it's for sure going to get messed up once we do the bottom panel, too. I do need to bring in the dang old shelf brackets that we did. It's still a little wet. I must have grabbed a can of gloss white to do the second coat. This should not have been this. It's gloss white for sure, which would explain why it's not dry yet. Sucks because I just grabbed the. Oh, all right. Well, definitely did not beat the buzzer on this one. I'm pretty happy with how these came out for getting them done in what was really kind of record time. They should work. It should work out well. You know, I was debating. There's a million ways we could have done this, but we basically have to offset where the shelf itself is going to land because that isn't wide enough to cross all 3 beams. I thought about making it wider and doing bars in between and doing another piece, but then the piece I had was too small and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, they're done, they're painted, but this gloss paint is way too wet. I mean, look at those finger impressions. Look at my fingers. Yeah, and it's been drying for like an hour or so. I just thought it was flat white. I did flat white intentionally, specifically, so it would be quick. But happy with how the table came out, I'll say that for sure. I think it's going to look good once it's all together with the bottom and such and in place. But obviously I still got to cut that. I still got to get that wood out of the way, take it there, boom, finish cutting that. I'm going to make that into 1, maybe 2 tables. This table's still got to finish curing. It's getting there though, slowly but surely. But yeah, as you can see, we've got a little bit of a mess that we still have to square away. So I'll get that done. I may do another shop one if any of my tool hunts come to fruition. That's really kind of the last thing besides this stuff is now we'll have the space for the tools, but we need the tools. You know, that's not, I guess that's not probably not the last thing. There's probably more things I want to do, but you know what I mean. The tools are kind of the big major piece of the puzzle that we had to make the space for, as well as cabinet for there, cabinets there, boom, boom. Maybe that, stuff and things. But for now, we are slap out of time, man. We're already a day over schedule, and then out of time again. I really thought I'd get all this done today, but the table took me a little bit longer, and the painting, blah, blah, blah. I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying. I do need to paint this edge so it matches, like, the back or the other side, you know? But, yeah, I could jibber-jabber on and on, but I'm going to wrap this up, and we will pick this back up. Probably working on the Alice Miata, you can tell it's been a long day. The NASCAR swap Miata, I want to get that thing rolling and get through some more projects on it. Now that we do have some more tools and more shop space, then maybe, I don't know. Let's see how I'm feeling. Let me know what you guys think. Should we go get one more shop thing done and ideally get it all buttoned up, or move on for now and find the tools at our leisure once we have them, take the time to get them all set up? Oh, it's a tough one. Because once we get all the tools set up, we can do way more stuff. I don't know. I gotta end it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. I appreciate you guys and enjoyed hanging out with you. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.